The millionaire arrived unannounced at his employee's apartment, but he could never have imagined what he would find. This can't be happening. William Thornton stood in the doorway, clutching his briefcase so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Standing in front of him was his immaculate executive assistant, Skylar Reed, the same woman who had never been late for 3 years, never made mistakes, never showed emotion. Only now she was wearing worn jeans and a bright blue t-shirt, holding a baby in her arms, and two children with radio-controlled trucks were running behind her. "Mr. Thornton?" Skylar's voice faltered, and she instinctively hugged the baby to her chest. "What are you doing here?" He opened his mouth, but the words stuck in his throat. In 3 years of working together, he knew just as much about his assistant: an Ivy League degree, impeccable punctuality, and the ability to solve any difficulties in silence and productively. And everything. "Documents," he finally managed, showing the briefcase. "Your signature is urgently needed for the French partners." A 9-year-old boy poked his head out from behind his mother's back, looking at the stranger with wide, curious eyes. A 6-year-old girl ran up to William, tugging at his expensive blazer sleeve. "Mom, is that the uncle from your office?" "Lisa, don't touch it." Skylar blushed to the roots of her hair. "I'm sorry, the kids don't understand." "Uncle is very serious," Lisa stated, not backing down. "He's got a suit like Dad from the news." William felt something tighten in his chest. He was used to people being afraid of him, respecting him, obeying him, but this little girl looked at him without fear, just with childish curiosity. "Zach, take your sister," Skylar whispered to her eldest son, and he obediently pulled Lisa by the hand. "You can come in." She stepped aside, clearly panicking. "Only it's not very tidy. The babysitter got sick and had to work from home." William stepped into the small apartment and was overcome by a feeling of unreality. There were toys everywhere. There were children's plates with leftover porridge on the table. The soft snuffling of a sleeping baby could be heard from the cradle. It was a different world, warm, vibrant, chaotic, the exact opposite of his sterile bachelor residence. "Mom, can I show my uncle my drawings?" Zach timidly held an album in his hands. "Not now, honey." But William had already squatted down in front of the boy, and he was suddenly interested in children's creativity. "Show me." "This is our house." Zach opened the album to the first page. "And this is Mom. She's always on the computer. And this is Lisa and little Olivia." In the drawing, 4 figures were holding hands near a small house. William noticed that his father was not in the drawing. "You draw beautifully," he said sincerely, and Zach lit up with pride. Skylar watched the scene in silence, holding the awakened baby in her arms. The baby suddenly held out his arms to William, and he froze in confusion. "She's like this with everyone," Skylar quickly explained. "Olivia, come to your mom." But something warm spread in William's chest when tiny fingers squeezed his index finger. He never kept children, never thought about family. His world consisted of meetings, negotiations, and deals. "Here, Mr. Thornton, the documents." Skylar held out her free hand, trying to bring the situation back to a professional level. He blinked back to reality and handed her the briefcase. I watched as she deftly balanced the child on one arm, while simultaneously reviewing the contracts. The same impeccable concentration with which she worked in the office, only now he saw how much effort it cost her. "That's right." She signed the documents and returned the briefcase. "Is there anything else you need?" William realized that he had to leave. It would have been logical to apologize for the intrusion, take the documents and forget about what he saw, return to his usual working relationship, but he couldn't stop looking at her. How gently she adjusted Lisa's hair, how patiently she explained to Zach that she needed to fold the toys, how naturally she lulled the baby. For 3 years, he had seen only a professional mask, and now he was watching the real Skylar, the mother, the protector, the foundation of this small world. "I didn't know," he said softly. I didn't need to know. She avoided his gaze. It doesn't affect my work. William looked at her more closely. Now he understood where those faint circles under her eyes came from, why she sometimes looked haggard in the morning, and why she never participated in corporate events. No, Skylar replied firmly, but her voice was trembling. There was an awkward silence. Lisa approached William and handed him a toy cup. Would you like some lemonade? I can make make-believe tea. For some reason, such a simple, childish proposal touched him more than any business compliments, but reality turned out to be stronger than fleeting warmth. I have to go. He stood up abruptly, hiding the documents in the inside pocket of his blazer. I have to rethink that. Skylar paled, and he realized that she took his words as a threat, as a hint of dismissal. Mr. Thornton, please, goodbye. He quickly headed for the exit, unable to stay in this apartment anymore, where everything was not the way he used to think. Behind him, a baby was crying softly, and Skylar's worried voice was soothing the children. William went out onto the landing and leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. Just half an hour ago, his life was clear and predictable. Now he could see Skylar's brown eyes full of concern for the children, and for the first time in years, he didn't know what to do next. Monday morning began with Skylar rereading the same financial report 3 times without memorizing a single word. Her hands were shaking so much that she hid them under the table, clenching them into fists. He's going to fire me. The thought was beating in my head like a bird in a cage. He saw the kids and realized that I was cheating on him, that I wasn't the perfect employee I pretended to be. William's office door had remained closed for an hour. He usually called her with his morning coffee and a list of tasks for the day. Today there is silence. Skylar imagined coming home with a box of personal belongings and explaining to the children that their mother was out of work again, that they would have enough money for a couple of weeks at most, and that they might have to move into their grandmother's small studio. Reed, come to my place. A voice from the intercom system made her jump. Skylar straightened her blouse, checked her hair, and headed for the door, mentally preparing words of gratitude for 3 years of work. William was standing at the window with his back to her, looking out at the city skyline. He looked unapproachable in the suit, but Skylar noticed the tension in his shoulders. Sit down, he said, without turning around. She sat down on the edge of her chair, ready for the worst. Tell me about your ex-husband. The question hit like a slap in the face. Skylar blinked rapidly, trying to figure out if she had heard correctly. Excuse me? The father of your children. Where is he? Bitterness rose in his throat, familiar and acrid. Even after 3 years, the memory of Andrew still hurt. I don't know, she confessed softly. I left when I found out I was expecting Olivia. William finally turned around, and in his eyes she saw not condemnation, but something like anger. Did he leave his pregnant wife with 2 children? He said he wasn't ready for a 3rd child, that I hadn't asked him. Skylar clenched her hands to keep them from shaking. I got divorced a month after Olivia was born. He doesn't pay alimony. Why didn't you tell me about this before? She looked up, meeting his gaze. He didn't have his usual coldness. And why? You were looking for an assistant, not a social occasion. 3 years, Skylar. You've been working from morning to night for 3 years. You never take sick days. You never ask for leave. William came closer, and she could smell his expensive cologne. How do you manage it? Babysitter from morning to evening. Grandma helps out on weekends, she replied mechanically. I work at home when the kids are asleep. I plan everything down to the minute. And yesterday, the babysitter got sick. Yes, I had to take the children with me to my mom's playground, but I did all the work, checked my mail, and prepared. Skylar. His voice softened, and she fell silent. I'm not going to fire you. Relief flooded her so suddenly that tears welled up in her throat, but it was too early to be happy. But now you know, and it's going to change everything. Change what exactly? Relationships. You'll think I'm using children as an excuse. If something goes wrong, you will doubt my dedication and work. William sank into the chair opposite, studying her face. You haven't made a single serious mistake in 3 years. Not a single one. You are working more efficiently than 3 ordinary assistants. He leaned forward. How long have you been living like this? Since Andrew left, she replied honestly. I sold the truck, moved into this apartment. I'm counting every penny. Why didn't you ask for help? To whom? Skylar tried to smile, but it came out crookedly. Andrew's parents think I forced him to leave. My retirees are barely making ends meet on their own. My friends all have their own worries. She hadn't planned on telling him so much, but there was something in his attentive gaze that made her tell the truth. Do you know what the scariest thing is? Her voice trembled. It's not that there's not enough money, but what the kids see. Mom's always tired, always nervous. Zach draws me with a sad face. Lisa asks why other people have fathers, but she doesn't. The tears finally broke, and Skylar covered her face with her hands. For 3 years she held on, pretended to be strong, did not allow herself to be weak. But now, in his boss's office, all the walls have collapsed at once. I'm sorry, she frantically searched for a napkin. This is unprofessional. To hell with professionalism, William said sharply, and she looked up at him in surprise. He handed her a handkerchief, expensive, with embroidered monograms. You're raising 3 children on your own, working for 1.5 jobs, and you're also apologizing for your emotions. Skylar dabbed at her eyes, not knowing what to say. In 3 years, William had never spoken to her so warmly, so humanly. What's next? She asked, returning the handkerchief. Then you go to drink coffee and I'll solve a few issues. What kind of questions? Workers. He stood up, indicating that the conversation was over. Skylar, she turned at the door. Your children are lucky. They have a strong mother. The rest of the day passed in a fog. William locked himself in his office and had several long phone conversations. Skylar heard snatches of phrases: corporate social responsibility, support for employees with children, urgently prepare the project. In the evening, he came out with a folder of documents and a strange expression on his face. We're going to have an interesting day tomorrow, he said, walking past her desk. And Skylar, no more secrets between us. She watched him go, trying to figure out what had changed. Something had definitely changed, but what exactly remained a mystery. Dear employees, starting from the 1st of next month, the company will introduce a program to support working parents. Skylar reread the corporate newsletter for the 3rd time in a row, unable to believe her eyes. Flexible schedule, compensation for summer camps, additional time off for family reasons. At the neighboring tables, colleagues discussed the innovation with surprise. The program appeared literally overnight without any preliminary discussions or announcements. It's strange, Thornton wasn't particularly family-oriented before, Amy's accountant whispered. Why did he suddenly start to care? Skylar lowered her eyes, feeling her cheeks burn. The coincidence was too obvious to be accidental. At lunchtime, she decided to take a walk with the children to the Millennium Park. Nanny Teresa finally recovered, but Skylar took advantage of the new flexible schedule to pick up the children early. Lisa pulled her toward the playground, while Zach pushed the stroller with Olivia. Just be careful, don't run too far. Skylar spread a blanket on the grass and settled down with a thermos of tea. The sun was shining through the leaves, and the children were laughing on the swing. The baby was sleeping peacefully in the stroller. For the first time in a long time, Skylar felt something like peace. Skylar? She turned around and saw William walking down the alley in jeans and a light shirt. Without the formal suit, he looked younger, more accessible. Mr. Thornton? She tried to get up, but he stopped her with a gesture. I was just walking. I saw you. He stood awkwardly next to the bedspread, not wanting to get in the way. Lisa ran down the slide and hung onto his arm. We're having a picnic. Would you like to come with us? Lisa, don't bother. Skylar was embarrassed. Mr. Thornton is busy. Not really. He looked at the little girl who was looking at him hopefully. If you don't mind. Skylar nodded, not knowing how to refuse. William sat down on the grass next to the blanket, and Lisa immediately settled down next to him. Do you have children? She asked with childlike directness. No, he answered honestly. Lisa, Skylar warned. Not either, William smiled. Aren't you going to get married? I'm a little girl, but when I grow up, I'll find a dad and mom too. Skylar felt herself blushing to the roots of her hair, but William reacted seriously. It's a good idea. Everyone needs a family. Zach came over with a sketchbook and handed it to William. Would you like to see it? I drew it yesterday. Skylar saw 4 figures on the new page, but now a 5th has been added to them. A tall man in a suit. It's you, Zach explained. The kind uncle who brought Mom important papers. William was silent for a long time, examining the drawing. Something changed in his face. It became softer. The shock. Thank you, he said softly. No one has ever painted me and my family. Why didn't you have a family? Lisa settled into his lap with childlike confidence. You're a good guy. We probably didn't meet the right people. Lisa carefully straightened his hair. Skylar watched the scene, and something warm spread in her chest. He communicated so naturally with the children, without a patronizing tone or pretense, as if he had always been able to. Olivia woke up and started acting up. Skylar reached for the cradle, but William was faster. May I? He carefully picked up the baby in his arms. Olivia immediately calmed down, staring at him with big eyes. A tiny hand reached for his face. She remembers you, Skylar smiled. Since Friday. But I remember her. He rocked the baby gently. Amazing, isn't it? Such a small one, but already an individual. All children are individuals, Skylar said softly. It's just that not everyone has the patience to see it. Their eyes met, and something new and unfamiliar stretched between them. Not a working relationship, not politeness, but something deeper. William, can you stay for dinner? Lisa interrupted the moment. Mom makes delicious pancakes. Lisa, Uncle is busy. Skylar tried to fix the situation. Actually, the next hour flew by unnoticed. William took the kids on carousels, listened to God's sports stories, and played Ladushki with Olivia. Skylar had forgotten that this was her boss. She only saw a man who easily found a common language with her children. Mom, can Uncle William come again? Asked Zach as they packed their things. Uncle William decides that, she replied cautiously. Of course I can, William said, and Skylar's heart quickened its rhythm. They were walking towards the exit of the park when a man in an expensive suit came across them. Skylar noticed William tense up. Victor, he greeted with restraint. William's partner gave their group an appraising look. A family outing? We met by chance, William replied coldly. I see. Victor smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. Nice to meet the employee and her family. After he left, William's mood changed. He became detached, thoughtful. Skylar asked as the children ran forward. Yes, he replied, but his gaze was directed somewhere in the distance. It's just getting complicated. They said goodbye at the metro station. William helped put the children on the train, waved goodbye to them, but Skylar could see the concern in his eyes. At home, as she put the children to bed, she thought about the day before, about how William had naturally integrated into their family world, how sincerely he had laughed at Lisa's jokes, and how patiently he had explained to Zach why the sky was blue. "Mom," Zach called from his bed, "is Uncle William good?" "Yes, good," she replied softly. "Then why is he sad?" Skylar didn't know what to say, but she felt that something had changed irrevocably after today's meeting. There was no longer just a working relationship between them, and that scared her more than anything. "Are you playing with fire, William?" Viktor Petrov closed the office door and sank into the chair opposite William, crossing his arms over his chest. "What are you talking about?" "About yesterday's idyllic scene in the park." Viktor took out his phone and showed me a picture. "You're holding a baby in your arms, and she's looking at you with loving eyes next to you. It's very touching." William clenched his jaw as he stared at the photo, the moment of their closeness captured by the lens. It's a private life. "What the hell kind of privacy? She's your subordinate," Viktor raised his voice. "One careless move and the press will tear you apart. Harassment, abusive position, taking advantage of a woman in need." "I'm not using anyone." "What does it look like from the outside? A rich boss, a poor employee with 3 children. Do you understand what you can turn her life into?" William turned to the window, but Victor's words hit the mark. He had been thinking about it himself all night. "Find someone from your circle," partner continued. "There are a lot of suitable candidates, but get rid of the employee before it's too late." Behind the wall of the office, Skylar sorted through the morning mail and heard muffled voices out of the corner of her ear. What were the men talking about? She didn't understand, but the intonation was far from friendly. Sarah, from accounting, sat down at her desk with a cup of coffee. "I walked all day yesterday as if on wings." "I don't know what you're talking about." Skylar didn't look up from the documents. "Come on, everyone noticed. At first, this program appeared for parents. He's paying special attention to you now." "Sarah, I have a job. Mike from the sales department says, I saw you in the park with the kids." Sarah leaned closer. "Are you messing with the boss?" Skylar abruptly raised her head, her heart beating faster. "We met by chance. The kids greeted him, that's all." "By accident," Sarah drawled incredulously. By the end of the day, gossip had spread throughout the office. Skylar felt curious eyes on her, heard snatches of whispers behind her back. The atmosphere became oppressive and uncomfortable. She stayed late in the evening to finish her quarterly report. The office was empty. It was just her and the guard downstairs. The only lights were on in her department and William's. Around 10 p.m., he came out of his office with a cup of coffee and stopped by her desk. "Still here?" "I'm finishing the report." She didn't look up from the screen. "Skylar," he sat down on the edge of the table. "What's going on? You've been avoiding me all day." "Nothing is happening." "People are talking." She finally looked at him. In the dim light of the night office, his face looked tired, almost vulnerable. "They say," she admitted, and not unreasonably. "Do you regret yesterday?" Skylar paused, choosing her words. "My children have become attached to you. Lisa asks when Uncle William is coming to visit." Zach drew a new drawing. "All of us together." She pushed away from the table. "And I do not know what to answer them." "Why?" "Because I don't understand what it was. A whim, curiosity, a desire to play with the family." William got up and walked around the office, putting his hands in his pockets. "Do you know what my childhood was like?" He stopped at the window, looking out at the night city. A shelter since the age of 5, then the boarding school, then the university dormitory. Skylar froze, listening. I've never seen a real family from the inside. I've never sat at a communal table. I've never heard children laughing in the house. I've never put a child to bed. He turned to her. And yesterday, for the first time in my life, I felt what home was. William, do you think I'm acting? Is this a rich man's whim? There was pain in his voice. I spent 35 years building walls around myself, thinking it was safer that way. And then I saw you with the kids and realized I'm just hiding from life. Skylar slowly got up from the table and walked over to him. And I've been afraid to trust someone for 30 years, she said softly. I am afraid that they will be deceived, abandoned, betrayed again. I'm building the same walls, only from the inside. They were standing opposite each other in an empty office, and the air between them was electrifying. What are we doing? She whispered. I don't know, he admitted, but I can't stop thinking about you, about the kids, about what it's like to come home, where they're waiting for you. I can't stop thinking about how you looked at Olivia, how patiently you explained to Zach about the planets, how Lisa fell asleep in your arms. William reached out and gently touched her cheek. This is crazy. Totally, she agreed, but she didn't pull away. The sound of the elevator in the hallway made them jump away from each other. Skylar quickly returned to the table, pretending to be working. William disappeared into his office. A week later, the company held its annual corporate party. Skylar usually found reasons not to attend such events, but this year William personally asked her to come. It's important for the team, he said, but there was something else in his eyes, and for me. On the evening of December 18th, she stood in front of the mirror in the only decent dress she had bought before Olivia was born. Grandma promised to babysit the children until dawn. Mom, you're very beautiful, Zach said, peeking into the bedroom. Will Uncle William be there? Asked Lisa. It will, Skylar smiled, even though her heart was racing. In the restaurant, she was greeted by curious stares from her colleagues. William was giving a traditional speech about the achievements of the year, but when their eyes met across the room, she saw in them the same excitement she felt herself. Well, will you finally show me what you're capable of? Sarah winked, pouring sparkling wine. Skylar understood. Tonight will be crucial. Either they find a way to be together, or it's over before it even starts. It was 15 minutes to midnight when William approached her table. Shall we dance? All the conversations in the hall died down. Skylar felt dozens of eyes on her, but she stood up and took his outstretched hand. On the dance floor, he pulled her closer, and she could feel his heart beating faster. It doesn't matter what people say, he whispered in her ear. The only thing that matters is how we feel. The music stopped, but they continued to stand in the center of the dance floor, not letting go of each other. The whole room was watching them with undisguised curiosity. Mr. Thornton? Skylar tried to pull away. People are watching. Let them watch. His hand tightened around her waist, tired of hiding. The phone in her purse vibrated. Skylar wanted to ignore the call, but she saw her grandmother's name on the screen and immediately tensed up. I'm sorry, it's urgent. She stepped aside and accepted the challenge. Grandma's voice sounded excited. Sky, there's something wrong with Lisa. The temperature is below 104 degrees, 40 degrees Celsius. Coughs terribly. I do not know what to do. The world swam around. Skylar gripped the phone so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Call an ambulance immediately. I'll be right there. What's wrong? William appeared next to her, seeing her frightened face. Lisa is sick. High fever. She rushed to the exit. I have to go. I'm with you. No, you have a corporate party, guests. To hell with the corporate party. He was already taking out the car keys. The child is more important. On the way home, Skylar was trembling all over, mentally replaying scary scenarios. William drove quickly but cautiously, looking at her with concern. "It's going to be okay," he said, covering her hand with his. "Children recover quickly." "You don't understand," she shook her head. "Lisa was born prematurely. Her lungs are weak. Every cold can turn into pneumonia." At home, they were greeted by a confused grandmother with a crying Lisa in her arms. The girl was pale, her lips were bluish, and her breathing was heavy and ragged. "The ambulance will be here in 10 minutes, the grandmother said. Skylar took her daughter, and she went limp in her arms, barely whispering, "Mommy, it hurts me to breathe." "Now, honey, now the doctors will help." Skylar kissed her hot forehead, trying not to show her horror. Zach stood in the bedroom doorway, staring at his sister in dismay. Olivia was crying in the cradle. William, without asking permission, picked up the baby and began to rock it gently. "It's okay, baby," he muttered. "Mom is busy with Lisa right now." When the ambulance arrived, the paramedic examined the child and frowned. "Suspected pneumonia. We need urgent hospitalization." "I'll go with her." Skylar packed her things with trembling hands. "And the children?" asked Grandma. "I can't stay all night. My heart hurts." "I'll stay," William said, and everyone turned to look at him. "Zach, Olivia, I'll keep an eye on it." "But you're—" Skylar began. "I'm going to the hospital and then I'll go back to the kids." His tone brooked no argument. "Everything will be fine." The hospital confirmed the worst fears: bilateral pneumonia. Lisa was hooked up to an oxygen mask and taken to the intensive care unit. Skylar could only stare through the glass door at her little daughter, entangled in wires. "The condition is stable," the doctor assured her, "but the first day is critical." William was sitting next to her in the hallway, occasionally leaving for phone conversations. Skylar heard snatches of phrases. "Rescheduled a meeting. Not now. Family circumstances." "You shouldn't be here," she said wearily. "You have a job to do." "There's nothing more important than that right now." He handed her a paper cup of coffee from the vending machine. "How do you feel?" "Like a mother who can't help her child." At 3 o'clock in the morning, Skylar was dozing, leaning against the wall, when the doctor came out of the intensive care unit with encouraging news. "The temperature is dropping, breathing is stabilizing. The crisis has passed." Skylar covered her face with her hands and cried from relief, from fatigue, from all the accumulated tension. William hugged her, and she didn't resist, allowing herself to lean on someone else's shoulder for the first time in many years. "She'll be fine," he whispered, stroking her hair. "Everything will be fine." And if she hadn't recovered? Skylar looked up at him with tear-stained eyes. "If I lost her, what would I say to Zach, Olivia?" "But you haven't lost her." "I'm so tired of being strong," she confessed, sobbing. "To be alone in everything, to make all decisions, to bear all responsibility. And today I thought, if something happens to me, who will take care of the children? Grandma is 75. She can barely walk on her own." William hugged her closer. "Now you're not alone." "We didn't even." She pulled away, looking at him through her tears. "We haven't decided anything. We haven't talked seriously about what's between us." "What's there to decide?" He cupped her face in his hands. "I love you. I love your children. I want to be a part of this family." "William, I know this is crazy. I know we have a lot of obstacles, but tonight, sitting in this hallway, I realized I don't want to live without you." Skylar looked into his eyes and saw the sincerity that couldn't be faked. She saw a man who left a corporate party to stay with other people's children, who spent the night in the hospital corridor, holding her hand. "And I realized that I don't want to be afraid anymore," she whispered. "I don't want to build walls and defend myself from life." Their first kiss happened in the hospital corridor under the harsh light of fluorescent lamps, against the background of hospital smells and sounds. But Skylar thought it was the most romantic place in the world. When they broke off their embrace, a faint voice was heard from the ward. "Mom, Uncle William." Lisa woke up. Pale, but with clear eyes, she held out her hands to them through the glass door. And for the first time in years, Skylar understood. She doesn't just have children to protect. She has a man with whom she can share both joys and fears. Dawn found them in hospital chairs, huddled together under a thin blanket brought by a sympathetic orderly. Lisa was sleeping peacefully in the ward. Her breathing became even. The temperature dropped to normal. Skylar woke up first and just stared at William sleeping next to her for a few minutes. His formal suit was rumpled, his tie was long gone, and his dark hair was disheveled. He looked younger, more vulnerable. He didn't have the usual mask of a successful businessman on his face, just fatigue and sincere concern. "How's Lisa?" He opened his eyes and immediately turned to the ward. "Sleeping. The doctor said that they can transfer to a regular ward today." William stretched and looked at his watch. 6:30 in the morning. I need to check on things at home. Zach must have woken up. He took out his phone and called his grandmother, who was spending the night with the children. Skylar listened to his quiet conversation and was surprised at how naturally he talked about breakfast for Zach, that Olivia might be moody in the morning, and the need to ventilate the apartment. "It's okay," he put the phone away. "Zach is already up, helping Grandma with Olivia. He asks when Lisa will come home." "He's so worried about the sisters," Skylar smiled sadly. "Sometimes it seems to me that he has matured too early, feels responsible for the family." "Just like you." William took her hand in his. "Skylar, I want to say something." "I'm listening." "Last night when you were crying, you said you were tired of being strong, and I've been afraid of being weak all my life." He looked out the window where dawn was breaking behind the glass. "They don't like the weak in the orphanage, and then they don't like the weak in business either. I used to think that emotions are a luxury that you can't afford." "And now what?" "Now I understand that real strength lies in allowing yourself to feel, love, and fear for those who are dear to you." He turned to her. "I'm afraid that I won't be able to cope with the role of a father, that I won't be able to give children what I've never had myself. And I'm afraid that I'm not a good enough mother," Skylar admitted, "that I spend too little time with my children, work too much, that they'll grow up and realize that Mom was always busy, tired, nervous." "You're the best mother I've ever seen." "How would you know? You say yourself, you haven't seen families from the inside." "I know from children," William smiled. "Zach draws you with a smile. Lisa trusts you with everything in the world. Olivia reaches out to you even when she's asleep. It's not just that." Skylar felt a lump rise in her throat. "Sometimes I lie at night and think, what if something happens to them? If I can't protect them? If I get sick myself? But I think, what if I disappoint them? If they want a dad and get someone else's uncle who doesn't know how to read bedtime stories?" They looked at each other and laughed. "Be quiet, so as not to wake Lisa." "We're both afraid of the same thing," Skylar said. "That we're not good enough for this family. Maybe we'll be better together." She wanted to answer, but she heard familiar voices in the hallway. William tensed up. Victor was walking towards them, accompanied by an elegant woman. Victor stopped in front of them, casting a contemptuous glance at the hospital chairs and their rumpled appearance. "Meet Evelyn Spencer from the PR agency. She's in charge of reputation management." Skylar stood up, feeling awkward in her evening dress and disheveled hair. "Welcome to your reality." Evelyn Spencer handed William a tablet. "Your photos from the corporate party are already in 3 gossip columns. The billionaire and his Cinderella. Office romance in the American way, love, or calculation? William scanned the headlines, and his face was turning to stone by the second. This is just the beginning, the woman continued. In a day or two, journalists will find your friend and find out about the children. There will be speculation about whether she is pregnant with your child, whether she is blackmailing children, whether she is claiming inheritance. Skylar paled. She imagined the photographers at home, the neighbors' questions, the curious glances at Zach's school. "And what do you suggest?" asked William coldly. "A simple solution." Victor sat down opposite. "We're transferring her to another department with a promotion. We provide silence for 6 months. Then she quits for family reasons. Good severance pay, recommendations, everything is civilized." "And the children?" Skylar asked softly. "Private school, nice neighborhood, maybe a nanny governess," Evelyn Spencer replied matter-of-factly. "We provide them with a decent future, but discreetly. No public relations with William." "So you're offering to buy my silence?" Skylar stood up. Anger spread like a hot wave in his chest. "We are offering a reasonable solution," Victor corrected. "Victor, are you seriously thinking of sacrificing your reputation for my family?" William finished, also getting up. "Yes, that's exactly what I think." "William, be realistic. One scandal and the company's shares will fall. Investors will start to get nervous. Competitors will take advantage of the situation. Then I'll find new investors." "And if you don't find it?" William looked at Skylar, then through the glass door at the sleeping Lisa. "Victor, all my life I've lost the people I loved. Parents, friends from the orphanage, girls who couldn't stand my obsession with work." He took Skylar's hand. "I'm ready to lose money, my reputation, even my company, but I'm not ready to lose them." Victor and Evelyn Spencer exchanged glances. "Good," said the partner sharply. "Your decision, but don't count on my support in this circus." They left, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. Skylar stared at William, not knowing what to say. "You could lose everything because of us," she whispered. "Or get what I've always wanted." He pulled her to him. "Skylar, I choose you, no matter what happens." Lisa's faint voice came from the room. "Mom, Uncle William, I want to go home." They went into the girl, who was already sitting up in bed and smiling, and Skylar realized that no matter how difficult the challenges ahead might be, they would get through them together. It's been 6 months since that hospital night that changed everything. "Daddy William, why don't the pancakes turn over?" Lisa was standing on a chair next to the stove, seriously stirring the dough with a wooden spoon. "Because you have to wait for one side to set." William carefully turned the pancake over in the pan. "See? And now it's your turn." Skylar watched the scene from the doorway, holding Olivia in her arms, who was happily babbling something in her childish language. The apartment has changed beyond recognition. New furniture, toys in beautiful baskets, framed children's drawings on the walls. But the main change was not in the setting, but in the atmosphere. The house was filled with laughter, warmth, and a sense of fullness of life. "Mom, look what a beautiful pancake it turned out to be." Lisa showed a slightly burnt creation. "The most beautiful," Skylar agreed, coming closer. "Daddy William is teaching you well." William met her gaze over his daughter's head, and lights danced in his eyes. In 6 months, he learned how to read bedtime stories, tie ponytails, explain homework, and comfort after childhood quarrels. Zach stopped being shy with him and now shared all the school news. Lisa considered him her personal knight, and Olivia started saying Dad before Mom. Speaking of work, William turned off the stove and turned to Skylar. The contract was signed with the Korean partners. Our joint platform project has been approved. "Ours," she repeated with a smile. "It's still strange for me to hear that word." After the hospital crisis, everything changed dramatically. William offered Skylar to become his business partner, not his subordinate. Together, they opened a consulting firm specializing in family business. Predictably, Victor left the project, taking away some of the clients, but the new business flourished. Mom, Dad, William, I have important news. Zach ran into the kitchen with a diary in his hands. I got an excellent grade for my essay, my family. And what did you write about? Asked William, wiping his hands on a towel. About how Dad learned how to make pancakes, how Mom laughs every day now, how Lisa no longer asks why she doesn't have a dad, Zach blushed, and that family is not necessarily blood. These are people who love each other. Skylar felt tears welling up in her throat. In 6 months, her eldest son has blossomed, become more confident, calmer. The nightmares about Dad not coming back are gone. Now he was planning for the future. I dreamed of showing William my school, introducing him to my friends. And I also wrote that I want William's dad to become a real dad, Zach added more quietly. It's possible. William and Skylar exchanged glances. They talked about it many times, putting off a serious conversation with the children. Zach, what does a real dad mean? Asked Skylar cautiously. Well, so that we all have the same last name, so that it would be written in the documents that he is our dad. The boy looked at them seriously. Never to leave again. Lisa, come here, William called to his daughter. We need to talk together. They sat down at the table, William with Olivia on his lap, Skylar between the children. That's exactly what a family should look like, she thought. We have some news for you, Skylar began, glancing at William for support. We want to get married, he said bluntly, but only if that's what you kids want. Lisa jumped up in her chair. And I'm going to be a bridesmaid? Of course, Skylar laughed. Will I carry the rings? Asked Zach. And Olivia will throw flowers when she grows up a little. William kissed the top of his youngest daughter's head. But first, we need to formalize everything. Adoption, new documents. So, I'll be Zach Thornton? The boy tried the new name to taste. If you want to. And Lisa will be Lisa Thornton. And Olivia Thornton, Lisa added solemnly. Skylar looked at the happy faces of the children and realized that they had accepted William into the family a long time ago, long before the official paperwork. For them, he already became a dad the moment he stayed with them in the hospital, when he learned to tie shoelaces and read fairy tales, when he began to kiss them goodnight and take an interest in school affairs. When's the wedding? Asked Lisa practically. In the summer, Skylar replied. In the park, where we got to know each other better. In Millennium Park? Exactly there. In the evening, when the children finally fell asleep, William and Skylar were sitting on the couch in the living room, which had once seemed so cramped and chaotic to him. Now it was the most comfortable place on earth. Don't you regret it? She asked, settling on his shoulder. About what? About the quiet life of a bachelor? About freedom? That now you have 3 children and a wife waiting for you at home with a lot of questions? William turned her face to himself. I didn't live before I met you. He existed, worked, and earned money. And now I wake up every morning and I know why I live. She kissed him, thinking about how strangely fate works. 6 months ago, he had come to their house as a stranger with important papers, and now it was her house, their home, the place where their common future began. Do you know what the most amazing thing is? She whispered. That the kids don't paint me sad anymore. Light snow was falling outside the window. Babies were breathing calmly in the children's rooms, and in Skylar's heart lived something she hadn't felt in many years. Absolute confidence in the future.